Welcome to Learning is the New Working. It's a podcast about the future of learning at work and the people who are helping us get to that. This episode is part of our Season 5, which is our Learning Leaders series. In this series, we talk to influential leaders in the workplace learning industry, in learning technology, and in related academic fields who we think are breaking new ground, running radical experiments, and generally moving our discipline forward. Today's guest is Gina Jeneroux. Gina describes herself as being on a mission to change how people learn and how they prepare for the future starting now. As Chief Learning Officer at Canadian-based banking giant BMO Financial Group, she's accountable for enterprise learning strategy, design, operations, and governance. She also manages BMO's corporate university, the BMO Institute for Learning, which has a physical presence in Toronto, Chicago, and Montreal. As you'll hear, she's a purpose-driven leader with a systematic approach for driving change. She's a champion of diversity, and we talk about banking for good, creating zero barriers for everyone through learning. I really like how Gina grounds her learning strategy in the big macro forces at work on the bank, on her organization, on her team, and on the future of work. This episode is sponsored by the Future Workplace Academy, where they develop you, your team, and your organization for the future of work. The Future Workplace Academy is a curated collection of 5-week online courses. These are cohort courses to upskill HR, HRIS, team members, and leaders for the future of work. The Future Workplace Academy is designed by and for HR and HRIS team members, with all online courses guided by an advisory board, which is led by the Future Workplace organization. You can enroll and check out the details of the Academy at www.futureworkplace.com/academy.
I'm Gina Jeneroux, and I'm Chief Learning Officer at BMO Financial Group. And today's date is July 27th, 2020.
2020, what a year. Great. Well, welcome Gina to Learning is the New Working. Thanks for doing this podcast episode with us. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And everything good with you? Everybody healthy? And
everyone's doing really well, thank you. It's so many points of uncertainty as we all try and figure out this new normal, but people are keeping well. And so family's good and team's good.
And we usually start with a sort of quick fire section. And I always ask people where in the world they live and why.
So I'm in Toronto, and I'm normally based at BMO's corporate university, which is the IFL, the Institute for Learning, and that's on the north side of the city. And so, we're excited to have that center for learning, innovation, creativity, and collaboration, and it's the thing that drew me to the city of Toronto.
Are you originally from Toronto? Because you sound like a Canadian to me.
I grew up about 2.5 hours away from Toronto in southwestern Ontario.
And then what is your job title, and how would you describe a typical day for you, if there is such a thing anymore?
So I'm Chief Learning Officer at BMO Financial Group. And, in a lot of ways, I think I have the most fun job in the company. It's part big picture strategy, innovation, making big bets on how we can equip everyone for the future. It's part, having a practical focus on learning and development that people need today and how to make that happen. And it's part operations and sort of P&L management as I manage facilities in Toronto, Illinois, and Montreal, and try and drive efficiency and effectiveness for the business of learning. So it can be strategic or tactical, it can be innovative, or it can be a little bit more straightforward depending on the moment and the day.
Could you sketch out for us the BMO business? It's a brand that not everybody might be familiar with, although it's a huge operation. Can you give us a sense of the scope and operations of BMO?
Sure, I'd love to. So BMO is the 8th largest financial institution in North America. We have more than 12 million customers across 22 countries. We are proudly in our 203rd year.
Wow.
And have more than 45,000 employees who bring the company to life every single day. And our purpose is to boldly grow the good in business and life. And that really underpins everything we do every single day in the company.
Well, I definitely want to come back to this purpose idea. I'm very interested in that. But can you tell me how would you describe the talent landscape?
So we have a really broad and diverse workforce within the company. And, as with many other large companies or particularly large financial institutions, there are a number of different types of roles and types of careers you can have within the company. So we have everything from bankers in the traditional sense through to some of the corporate finance and global asset management talent. We've got technology. We have people focused in on different parts of corporate areas. We have lawyers. We wide diverse range of skills and talents. And we also have a wide array of people from an age perspective, with about 42% of our workforce as millennials and about almost 5% as Gen Z or Gen Z, depending on which side of the border you're on. And then about 54%, I guess, made up of Gen X and boomers. And so we've got about just over 40% women. We have a really strong focus on diversity and inclusion within our company, and we've been focused in on that for a number of decades. We have moved the dial really from a place of diversity into inclusion, into belonging. And so even as we achieved more than 40% women in senior roles in the company, we've now shifted our attention to how do we get 40 to 60% of men and women in all parts of the company to really focus in on that inclusion. We have about 35% of our employees from Black, Indigenous, and people of color groups or BIPOC, and about 4.5% or so people with disabilities.
Very interesting.
And so, we really pride ourselves on being an inclusive organization.
How does L&D fit in the organizational structure? And then how do you think about your sort of mission and strategy?
So we're really operating under what I would call a franchise model. So the enterprise team that reports into me, we really focus on everything that touches 45,000 employees and the things that focus in on about 6,000 leaders across the company. We focus on what every employee needs for today, which includes things like compliance learning and some core skill development, as well as the future of work. And so really trying to ladder up to the skills that are required over the next, 3, 5, 10 years. We focus on infrastructure and the technology needed to support learning across the entire company. And we focus in on governance to ensure that there's, good consistent approaches. And we're really maximizing the way that we're able to deliver learning across the company. And then there are learning teams that actually sit in and report in to each business group across the organization. And they focus in on the role needs of people within their business group and trying to focus in on the specific skills that are needed for today to support business strategy in those groups. And of course, we're closely joined at the hip to make sure that we're being really well integrated and trying to achieve that right balance.
Yeah, what's the population of L&D people across the organization?
We have approximately 200 people, about 80 of them roughly in the enterprise team, and the rest dispersed across a number of different business groups.
And how does funding work in your model, Gina?
So we invest more than $80 million a year in learning development across the company, and that includes both formal and informal opportunities. And so, it really is something that is a priority investment in all parts of our company.
Well, can we dig in a little bit more detail on some of the topics? I should probably tell people that you and I have had a few conversations before because we're working on this this learning disruption course with the future workplace people. And so I've sort of got a heads up on what's kind of top of mind for you and what you think about and the journey that you're on. But just to start, when I think about the banking industry. I think mostly about consumer banking. That's what I know, of course, as a consumer. But I know that technology has changed that experience amazingly over the last few years. I also know that there is a lot of disruption around sort of emerging fintech players who are poised to offer a whole raft of new services that may even be challenging traditional banks. How is tech a force for change from your perspective?
And so, our investment in technology is a huge priority in the company, and it's really integral to BMO's focus on customer innovation, on achieving our efficiency goals and our broader growth ambitions. We've also really focused on advancing technology innovation and investing in things like a DMZ, which is a technology innovation space for fintechs and other entrepreneurial organizations. And we see it as an opportunity for us to partner together, bringing some of the strengths and creativity of fintech and the strength and experience of established banks.
Right.
We've really focused over the last few years on investing in digital technology and making sure that we're building a platform that gives us resilience and scalability to sustain the critical services and keep pace with what our customers need, both today and what's emerging for the future. And we're also focusing on how do we really prepare ourselves to respond quickly, to leverage AI, robotics, the cloud, et cetera, as we continue to evolve our platforms.
And what other sort of forces are at work on the banking sector, Gina? What other things are potentially disrupting or causing you to think differently about how your core business runs?
So I think the forces that we're seeing in many ways are very similar to the forces that are being seen across every industry. And so, as you think about the megatrends that are impacting life and work these days, there's new possibilities with rapidly evolving technology and digital experience. There's new expectations from an increasingly multicultural, multi-generational workforce and customer base, increasing focus on social innovation, transparency, and trust, increasing economic uncertainty from disruption, competition, globalization, nationalism, and of course the pandemic that we're in right now. And these sorts of big mega trends, we're already seeing current realities of those. And each one of them isn't especially new, but they've really come together in ways that are amplifying their impact.
You have a purpose statement for the organization. You mentioned it before. I think it's boldly grow the good in business and life.
Yes.
What's the story behind adopting a purpose statement? I'm sure that was a very deliberate thing. I'm interested in why the organization did that, and of course, I'm really interested in if it changes in any way how you do your work and how you feel about working for the organization.
Absolutely. So, put simply, our purpose statement is really about affirming what our strengths are as a company and the core beliefs that drive us. And it really enables us to attach intention to our strategic priorities and to ground the actions that we take in every part of the company to our values and give direction to the choices that we make around growth, around how we are able to drive and aim higher, think bigger, and unite the whole company in big and small ways, and inspiring people around us to do the same. And so we launched the purpose statement to boldly grow the good in business and life back in June of 2019. But the journey itself actually started long before that. We actually essentially crowdsourced it with about 18,000 BMO employees, asking for their input through surveys, workshops, conferences, interviews, etc. We also spoke to customers. We reached out to stakeholders in our communities and also some real industry leaders in a number of different industries to help us understand the unique needs that only BMO can fulfill in the world. So why does the world need BMO? And, along with our purpose statement, we also made some big commitments to really be able to try and move the dial and make them tangible, make sure it was proof points and not just words on a wall. And so we've really focused in on targeted investment and, being able to really advance sustainable environment to be able to support entrepreneurs, to be able to create zero barriers. And that's enabled us to really support our customers, our communities, and our economy.